You said that there's one thing, for Shedeur Sanders to kind of lock down this starting quarterback job as we are
Yeah.
a couple days out from training camp starting.
So I keep getting asked, people keep asking me, like, what does Shedeur Sanders have to do to win the job? What do you like? And we were at the Austin Carr golf outing on Monday, which is a great time, really good event. And, like people that were in my golf group were kind of asking me like, oh, what do you think about the quarterback competition? So it's like, I get these questions all the time. And the more and more I've thought about it.
The Cleveland Browns quarterback competition is one of the biggest stories heading into training camp. And naturally, most of the attention has centered on rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders. Fans keep asking the same question. What does Shedeur Sanders need to do to win the Browns starting quarterback job? The answer may be much simpler than many people expect. At first glance, it seems obvious that Sanders would need to dominate training camp with highlight reel throws, incredible athletic plays, and unforgettable performances. That's usually how young quarterbacks force their way into a starting role. But after watching everything unfold throughout off-season workouts, minicamp, and OTAs, the reality appears very different. The truth is, Shedeur Sanders may not need to do anything extraordinary at all.
We've all kind of when you get asked that question, it's easy to lay out the things like, well, if he does this, or, if he keeps making improvements, or he shows that he can read a defense, like whatever. Those are the easy answers to go to. But I'll be honest, like the more and more I thought about this, the more I've thought that Shedeur doesn't have to do anything extraordinary to me to win this job. Because as you know, I don't have a lot of confidence that Deshaun is going to be this good quarterback ever again. And I don't have a lot of confidence in him being the starting quarterback for this team.
Instead, this quarterback battle could come down to one thing: consistency. Throughout the offseason, Sanders quietly built momentum. While he didn't always make the flashy throws that flooded social media, he consistently operated the offense efficiently. He completed passes, made smart decisions, kept drives alive, and showed a growing understanding of the Browns' offensive system. Those are exactly the qualities coaching staffs value most. Meanwhile, the spotlight remains firmly on veteran quarterback Deshaun Watson. Watson still possesses elite arm talent, and there were moments during spring practices where he reminded everyone why he was once considered one of the NFL's top quarterbacks. Every now and then, he would uncork an incredible deep pass or squeeze the football into impossible windows.
And so in thinking about that and thinking about how the spring looked, where it was like Deshaun probably had more like wow throws, but for every wow throw, he then had a throw that was like in the dirt or behind a guy or picked off. And Shedeur just felt more steady throughout the spring, where it was like he might have not had all the big eye-popping throws, but he was leading the offense, he was completing the passes, he was making the plays necessary, and he had a couple bad days in there, everybody does. But I thought about it more and more, and I'm like, I think it's less about Shedeur having to come out and do anything other than what he's done to this point in terms of like proving that he's developed, proving that he's seen things clear, and executing the plays.
But those wow moments were often followed by mistakes. There were inaccurate throws into the dirt, passes behind receivers, questionable decisions, and inconsistency that left coaches wanting more. For every spectacular play, there seemed to be another that erased the excitement. That's why this competition has stayed open longer than many expected. Many believed Watson would separate himself by the end of minicamp. With years of NFL experience and familiarity with professional defenses, he was expected to clearly outperform the rookie. That never happened. Instead, Sanders steadily closed the gap. Perhaps the biggest indication came from head coach Kevin Stefanski's decision not to name a starting quarterback after minicamp concluded. If the coaching staff truly believed Watson had clearly won the job, there would have been little reason to keep the competition alive entering training camp.
I think it's more about what Deshaun has to do, because Deshaun has to convince everybody that like he's truly the better of the two quarterbacks. And by the way, the fact that Todd Monken wasn't ready to make a decision at the end of minicamp, I think is telling, because he wanted to. And I think in his mind, he probably thought like by the end of minicamp, Deshaun will have cemented himself and pulled away that I'll be able to name him the starter. And that didn't happen. So what does that say? That tells you like, yeah, Shedeur put in the work and closed the gap. But it also tells you that like Deshaun isn't probably performing to the level that they thought he was going to perform to. So to me, it's like, I think Shedeur just keeps doing what he's doing.
The fact that no decision was made speaks volumes. It suggests Sanders has earned genuine consideration, not because of hype, but because of his consistent performance. That's why many analysts now believe the pressure isn't actually on Shedeur Sanders. The pressure is on Deshaun Watson. Watson has to convince the Browns organization that he is unquestionably the better quarterback. He must prove that his shoulder is healthy, He must prove that his accuracy has returned. He must prove that he can consistently lead the offense. Most importantly, he has to prove he can play at the level Cleveland originally expected when they invested heavily in him. If Watson cannot separate himself, the Browns may have little choice but to seriously consider handing the offense to Sanders. For Sanders, the formula is remarkably simple. Don't force throws. Don't chase highlight clips. Don't try to impress social media. Just keep stacking quality practices.
I think that could be enough to win the job because, and I don't think he has to do anything exceptional or extraordinary because I don't think Deshaun is just going to run away with this thing. And if it comes down to that, yeah, you might lean Shedeur in that scenario. So I think it's more about Deshaun having to do something extraordinary and proving my experience, my running ability, my passing is back and my shoulder's fine. And I can make more of these incredible plays than Shedeur can for him to win the job than it is for Shedeur to do anything crazy special. I really do feel that way.
Yeah, I can get with that program because it's more about stacking good practices.
Every successful completion builds confidence. Every correct read earns trust. Every mistake avoided strengthens his case. Training camp isn't necessarily won with spectacular plays. It's often won through reliability. Coaches appreciate quarterbacks who consistently execute the offense exactly as designed. They want players who understand coverages, make smart decisions under pressure, and protect the football. Sanders has already shown flashes of those qualities. If he continues doing exactly that throughout camp, he may naturally find himself climbing to the top of the depth chart. Another factor working in Sanders' favor is timing. Watson hasn't played consistent football for an extended period. Injuries and time away from the field have created understandable concerns about whether he can immediately return to his previous level. Football is a rhythm sport. Quarterbacks rely on timing with receivers, confidence in pocket movement, and split-second decision-making. Missing extended periods of action makes those instincts difficult to regain.
And being consistent versus having those one or two wow moments that might make it to social media and then people make the choice to critique one way or another. One of the things we talked about before the show, and I looked it up. So the quarterbacks were there.
I forgot to. I was going to tell you during the break. I realized it was the quarterbacks and the rookies who showed up this week. Yes.
Yeah. So they are already there getting some early work in. I'm right there with you. All Shedeur has to do is just be consistent, stack good practices, and show that he's picking up what Todd Monken is putting down.
Even the most talented quarterbacks need live repetitions. That reality gives Sanders an opportunity. Every practice allows him to gain experience, while Watson continues trying to rediscover his rhythm. If Sanders performs steadily while Watson struggles with inconsistency, the coaching staff could find themselves making a very difficult, but increasingly obvious, decision. And that's exactly why consistency may ultimately outweigh raw talent during this competition. Of course, the quarterback battle isn't the only storyline Browns fans should watch this summer. The defense enters training camp facing enormous questions after significant changes. For years, Myles Garrett served as the identity of Cleveland's defense. His impact stretched far beyond the stat sheet. Opposing offenses constantly dedicated two blockers to slowing him down. Offensive coordinators adjusted game plans specifically because of Garrett's presence.
I think that Deshaun Watson is going to be motivated. I think at this point I sound like a broken record. He's going to be motivated. I think he's going to do everything that he possibly can to win his starting job because he sees his NFL mortality right in front of him. Yeah. And this is the best opportunity for him to revitalize his career, whether it be here or elsewhere long term, because he might want to still play again. I just question being off of your job for 693 days plus when you know the speed of the game is a real thing.
For sure.
I'm not sure if you're going to be able to overcome that.
Those double teams created opportunities for everyone else. Linebackers had cleaner paths to the football. Interior defensive linemen faced fewer double teams. The secondary benefited because quarterbacks had less time to throw. Garrett's influence touched every level of the defense. Replacing that impact won't be easy. Now attention turns toward the next generation of defensive leaders. Can Jared Verse become the pass rusher capable of anchoring the defensive front? That's one of training camp's biggest questions. Verse possesses tremendous athletic ability and impressive potential, but replacing a player of Garrett's caliber is nearly impossible. Fans must remember that he doesn't need to become Myles Garrett overnight. He simply needs to become the best version of Jared Verse.
In a significant amount of time to where it's not impacting the season when we know we got to get a real good look at Shedeur Sanders before this season ends. So, yeah, that's the way I kind of look at that. Also, as far as the biggest non-QB story for me, I think it's going to be the Browns defense, because you have so many people with mixed opinions and feelings about the departure of Myles Garrett and Jim Schwartz.
Other players will also need to elevate their performances. Alex Wright enters an important season where many believe he's capable of taking a significant leap forward. If Wright develops into a reliable edge rusher opposite Verse, Cleveland's defensive line could remain highly competitive despite Garrett's departure. Then there's Mason Graham. The young defensive tackle has enormous expectations entering another year of development. Can he become a disruptive force against both the run and pass? His growth could dramatically influence the Browns' defensive success this season. At linebacker, Carson Schweissinger has quickly emerged as one of the defense's brightest young stars. Many already believe he's becoming one of the league's most promising players at his position. Training camp will provide another opportunity to see whether he can build upon an outstanding rookie campaign. His chemistry alongside veteran Quincy Williams could become one of Cleveland's greatest strengths. Meanwhile, the secondary also faces new challenges. Without Garrett consistently forcing quarterbacks into rushed decisions, defensive backs may have to maintain coverage for longer periods. That puts additional pressure on communication, discipline, and execution. The defense's overall success won't depend on just one player replacing Garrett. It will require improvement across every position group. Every defensive lineman must generate more pressure. Every linebacker must diagnose plays faster. Every defensive back must cover longer and create turnovers. That's what makes this Browns team so fascinating entering training camp. There isn't just one major storyline. There are several. Will Shedeur Sanders continue proving he belongs? Can Deshaun Watson reclaim his former level? Will the Browns' defense remain dominant after losing one of football's most impactful defensive players? Those questions will gradually receive answers over the coming weeks. But among all of them, the quarterback competition remains the headline. For months, many assumed Sanders needed perfection to earn the starting job. Now that narrative is changing. He doesn't necessarily need spectacular throws every practice. He doesn't need viral highlights every afternoon. He doesn't need to outperform every quarterback by an overwhelming margin. He simply needs to continue doing exactly what he's already been doing. Operate the offense. Protect the football. Complete passes. Build trust. Stack successful practices. If Sanders accomplishes those goals while Watson continues battling inconsistency, the Browns coaching staff may discover that the rookie has quietly earned the opportunity to lead the franchise. Sometimes the biggest competitions aren't won through dramatic moments. Sometimes they're won through discipline, patience, preparation, and consistency. For Shedeur Sanders, that may be all it takes. As Browns training camp officially begins, every practice rep will matter. Every throw will be analyzed, every decision scrutinized, and every performance compared. The battle is far from over, but one thing has become increasingly clear. Shedeur Sanders no longer looks like a long shot. He looks like a legitimate contender for the Browns' QB1 job. If he continues to stack good practices, avoid costly mistakes, and show command of the offense, he may not just compete for the starting role. He could very well win it. The coming weeks will determine Cleveland's future under center, and all eyes will be on whether consistency is enough to launch the rookie into the starting lineup.